Hello again. One common theme which I have noticed when debating with anti-racists, either on the internet or in real life, is a reliance upon one particular logical fallacy, a flaw in reasoning which renders many of the arguments void. It is known as arguing from the particular to the universal. Examining this might enable us better to understand the faulty mental processes which lie at the heart of anti-racism in the Western world. Let me start by giving an example of how arguing from the particular to the universal works. There was a time, within my memory, when the idea that smoking was horribly injurious to health was not accepted by everybody. The evidence then was relatively new, and there was room for doubt as to how strong it was. One thing which habitual smokers used to say was, I don't see how smoking can hurt people. My Uncle Jim smoked 80 a day and he lived until he was 95. So there can't really be any harm in cigarettes, can there? The fatal flaw here is, of course, that smoking cigarettes is very dangerous and that a large number of those indulging in the habit are likely to suffer ill effects and early death. A large number, but not all. By choosing one exception, one does not disprove the fact that more heavy smokers will die prematurely than will be the case in a similar group of non-smokers. In this example, it is easy to see the fallacy at work, but it's not always that simple. How about this statement? During a discussion of asylum seekers coming to Britain, somebody is sure to remark that such people can benefit the country, and they proceed to tell a story about somebody like Nadim Zahawi, who arrived in this country as a refugee unable to speak English and then rose to become Chancellor of the Exchequer and now Chair of the Conservative Party. On the face of it, this seems oddly convincing, until we remember that 75,000 people have claimed asylum in this country over the course of the past 2 years. The fact that one man came here as a refugee in 1976 and did well for himself tells us precisely nothing about the possible advantages or disadvantages to the nation from all those tens of thousands of people who are now arriving here. It too is a classic instance of attempting to argue from the particular to the universal. Just because one person came to the country and succeeded in forging a useful career for himself doesn't tell us how useful all those other refugees are likely to be. It's completely irrelevant. Here is another common example of the fallacy. If discussion takes place about possible differences in average IQ between various ethnic groups, and the suggestion is made that the average IQ of people from sub-Saharan Africa might be lower than that of people of Chinese heritage or white Europeans, say, somebody is sure to pipe up, well, that can't be right. I know a black guy who's a university professor, or a doctor or barrister, perhaps. This may be combined with examples of slow-witted white people known personally to the speaker. This, just like the person with the uncle who was a heavy smoker and lived to a ripe old age, has absolutely no relevance to anything at all. If it proved to be the case that the average IQ of people of sub-Saharan heritage was a few points below that of white Europeans, it would tell us nothing at all about any individual white person we met, or black person either. We are likely to meet many intelligent black people as we go about our lives, just as we are also likely to encounter quite a few dim-witted white ones. None of this tells us anything at all about average intellectual ability. I thought it worth mentioning this flawed piece of reasoning because it frequently appears when anti-racists are discussing the idea of scientific racism. I think it may be because rather than starting from the data and then forming an idea which fits the available information, they rather tend to start from an ideological position and then expect the data to fit in with their preconceived ideas. In such a case, the only way that they are then able to support their ideas is by both being very selective in the facts upon which they rely and also combining this with various logical fallacies, of which arguing from the particular to the universal seems to be the most popular.